Hello everyone and welcome to Gierok Farms. Today we are in the dairy barn. We're going to bring you along with for milking. We just started in here. We're milking with 8 units, so it's going to be a jam-packed morning. We're going to keep chugging along here. So thank you all for watching the video. Alright, so while Dad's prepping the next set of 8, I'm headed to the other end of the barn here to check the milk house. Right away, once milk starts getting in the system, we come back here to double check all of our plumbing, make sure we didn't spring a leak anywhere, make sure everything's hooked right and routed the right way, and it appears to be so. So we're all good in here. Another thing we do is turn the system from wash to cool. Once milk starts hitting the tank, then the agitator starts moving. You can hear the coolers kick on in the background. You don't want to kick that on until milk is in the tank. We don't want to stress out that system and overwork that system when there's not even milk in there. But that's not the only source of cooling, the tank's refrigeration itself, but also we have a plate cooler on the wall on the other side of the tank there. That pre-cools the milk before it reaches the tank. So we got 2 different types of cooling or chilling here, because it comes out of the cow really warm. So how warm is the milk coming out of a cow?
Well, the cow's temperature is 101 or 101 and a half on average.
Yeah.
So I assume it's that. By the time it gets to the tank, it's probably, or to the jar, it's maybe 90. If you get a cold winter day, it might cool it some that way.
Yeah. You were talking about the well water is at 50 degrees.
Yep, so your ground temperature is, and I mean, that's pretty much a rule of thumb. The ground is 50 degrees. So no matter whether it's a super hot day or a super cold day, if you dig down to a certain level, 50 degrees is kind of your temperature there. So that's about where the well water comes out.
So that plate cooler is well water is running through part of that, and then milk's running through the other part. So it gets the milk to probably about 60 degrees. Is your guess?
Well, yeah, depending on how fast it goes through and how fast your water's running through. So what we got is 52 plates. And this plate cooler came from a larger unit. They must have updated, and then they sent that here. And that's designed where you can put more plates in. It could probably be double that, depending on your setup. But this is an extremely expensive item, and this one was a used one, and that was thousands of dollars, maybe 20 years ago already. We did have our first tank. It was one of those old flat tops. And my cooler guy said there's no way we can get this to cool any faster. And being that our production was getting better, we're milking more units. And then there was kind of an issue with cooling the milk fast enough. State and everything's got a criteria. It's got to cool it fast enough to keep it bacteria low and all that stuff. So then we added the plate cooler, which helped out a lot.
And then the tank does the rest to drop it. That last, what would that be? You're trying to get to 30.
38 is where we're set at. I mean, it can, I think it turns on at 40 or 41. I mean, it's a thermostat, can be set for that.
And then it keeps it cool until the milk truck's here and gets it to the processing plant.
So the whole key is cool it really quick. You know, prevents it from growing anything like any kind of bacteria level going up. There's an agitator in there, and it's on a timer. So when your cooler's on, whether the cooler's running or not, your agitator, and I'm not sure what the interval is, if it's every half hour, 40 minutes, or how it's set, but it will stir it slowly enough because your warmer milk will always go to the top.
Yeah, it keeps everything nice and even in there.
Yeah, and then it you know, senses that. So when we're milking now, so let's say this is the second or third milking, so every other day the truck comes, so we got 4 milkings in there. Well, let's say we're the second or third milking, we start milking, that warm milk goes on top. The sensors or the cooling plates are all underneath, so if it wouldn't stir it, you would, you know, so it blends it in and it actually, it cools it even
Quicker,
more quick.
All right, we got to keep moving though here. We'll talk some more, but we got 8 units on, so we got to stay focused watching those. All right, so we just switched another batch of units. I've been post-dipping, Dad's been pre-dipping, but we want to touch on some more cooling and highlight that.
So what we got here is, this is where we start milking. This is the far end of the barn. These 2 hoses, one feeds what we call the lower tank, one feeds the upper tank, and then we got this ball valve. So we get started milking. I can hear the transfer pump when it kicks in. So the rule of thumb is check the milk house, make sure nothing's leaking. Then I turn these on, and I can adjust the flow a little bit. So now it's warmer, so we're filling the upper tank. Otherwise, it's just the lower tank. So anyway, water's flowing while the milk is flowing. And then we can even hear a cow drinking here. Kind of part of the theory of feeding them before we milk. They will drink during milking more, and they learn that that water is warm, and they like drinking warmer water sooner than icy cold water. So.
And that dry grain that we're feeding, that's a treat that has some salt in it, so it also encourages.
Right, and salt encourages water intake, which milking cows need to drink a lot of water in order to be at their full potential, and of course salt's good for other things too. So then, like out here too, that tank, when it's bitter cold, it gets iced over, and you've seen it too, where it's still cold out, but the ice goes away because of the plate cooling.
Yeah.
So even when they're outside, if they prefer to drink out there some, then they got open water. We don't have to be chopping a big hole through it every day of the year anymore.
Yeah, so not only the milk house, but the whole barn's drinking cup system and the water tank out back is part of that
Right.
cooling system
Right.
for the milk.
So the milk house is on the far end, and everything has to go through the barn all the way till it gets to these hoses and then out the other end. Yeah, so it's a continuous line that allows all the cattle to have an option of drinking and stuff to milk.
And that way we're not wasting water, we're not wasting energy. It creates another ecosystem on the farm,
Yeah,
I guess
exactly.
you could say.
Exactly, and I think it's cheaper for us to have the well pump running than it is to have that compressor running.
Yeah.
I mean, that there's definitely a plus.
All right, well, we gotta get back to milking here. We gotta keep moving. Like I said, we got 8 units on, so that keeps us busy. We'll be talking a little more here before we're finished. I guess a good way to put it is that the cows help cool their own milk. They're all kind of responsible for helping cool down a portion of their milk by drinking water. The cups here kind of work like a drinking fountain, where you press this lever here with their nose, and then it starts to feed water into the cup. This right here is the lever. That's why, like her, she's thirsty and wants to keep drinking. She can just keep her nose right in there and keeps getting plenty of water. All right, we're to the other end of the barn. Now we're gonna switch cows. So Dad's gonna go let some of these girls in, and you'll watch the switching process here. Okay, we got all the switch cows in here. As you guys can see, that's kind of organized chaos. It's a bit of a dance. It's nice to keep the same cows doing that. They kind of learn that routine, and everybody is pretty cooperative as long as they've done it before. But they do make a mess of the walk. But that's okay. Shortly here, we'll be finished up with milking and cleaning up the barn after we get all the cows out here. All right, I wanted to quickly interrupt the middle of the video, just give you guys a little bit of an announcement. So our P.O. box, I want to throw that up on the screen for you guys, and then also throw it down in the description. So if you ever wanted to send us anything, send it to that P.O. box. I know if you guys Google Gierok Farms, you might get an address from a different Gierok Farms. They've been getting some of our mail, and we don't want to keep doing that. We want to make sure whatever you guys send us is getting to us. Also, while we're talking, remember, check out GierokFarms.com, our very own website, where we got these hats, we got t-shirts, hoodies at GierokFarms.com. But let's get back to the video.
You know, something's wrong with this picture. You can see who wears the pants around here. Come on, you guys, you get your noses in that dish. I gotta wait till the cats are done. I just fed them. And I heard it somewhere. Cats rule and dogs drool. Come on, get in there. Come on. Come on, you have to get brave. Oh, scared. Give them the look. What? Who's in charge anyway around here? It's what they call the pecking order here.
Okay, we have just finished up with milking. That went really fast with the two of us and with 8 units. Dad just finished washing out the pipeline. So now the plate cooler is in the off position. We'll show you guys that in a bit more detail here. But we also wanted to show you our cooler for the tank. So back in here in this corner is where Dad keeps all of that equipment.
So this is kind of where it was when we came here. There's a little nook in the back of the milk house here, and then you got a window we can have open in the summer to get air. So what it does is it blows the air into the milk house. So this here unit actually warms this room. So like under your refrigerator, it takes the heat out of out of your refrigerator and blows it into your house. And that's the same at this. It takes the heat out of the milk, and then you got basically these 2 lines. And I'm not a cooler guy. I don't know details of all this, but this device right here is literally what we call the compressor. And then you got type of Freon in there, and I'm not even 100% positive what's in there. You got to have a license to do all this. What happens if something goes wrong with this machine, it don't start for whatever reason. I mean, first of all, I check what I can check on my end, electrical or whatever might be going on, but I got to have a guy on call. We got a guy not too far away, but they're getting kind of fewer and further between those type of guys, but it'd be the same guy that would service like your car air conditioning or your tractor air conditioning. They kind of go, or even in some meat market or whatever, it's the same thing. It's generally the concept's the same. So anyway, those guys, it seems like about once a year or so somebody needs to service this thing, you know.
Yeah, and we can't afford for this to go down. This
Right.
this can't break. We can't sell our milk if it's not cooled.
The rule of thumb is the milk has to stay under 50 degrees. If it gets above 50 degrees, I mean, we've had it where, so you can go into your refrigerators, ice makers in there, and you can put ice in a tank. You know, you notify your milk plant that, you know, you had cooler problems, and that's their advice, put ice in to save the milk. So they'll have to adjust your weight a little bit. Well, what it'll really do is it'll just make your components drop a little bit anyway. So there's really no way of, you're not really getting any more for your milk because of doing that. But you're saving the product, because the other alternative is to dump it. And you can't really run it down the drain, so it gets to be a bit of a rigmarole to get it out and maybe haul it back out in the field. But I had to do that once because of something like that, where it was a hot summer day and it was just, you know, you can't sell bad milk. But so this has to be up, and this is an old system. It's probably built in the 80s, but when it comes down to it, this is your main part, and you got, I think I had the motor on one of the fans wasn't right, so it'll still work with one fan, but it's kind of like it's limping, you know. So you get it fixed. So you take things and always dumping a little bit of money into this type of stuff.
Yep, so that's kind of the end of the cooling process there, but we wanted to highlight the plate cooler while we're in here.
Yeah, and then they got this plate on the side, and I don't know if you guys can see all those numbers, but so I think that represents how many plates are in here. And then you see the thread rod here, you know, you could do double probably. Now, I never had this apart. They say they're really not fun to get them back together without them leaking. I think it's really, it'd be quite the undertaking. But so what you got is you got your well water on one side of that plate and your milk on the other. So your milk's got to weave through 52 plates, and that's a transfer of cool water on one side and warm milk on the other, which gets you down to roughly 60, I feel.
Which is similar to a radiator in a car, except for coolant and air. Now it's just two liquids here. It's water and milk.
And it's kind of like the boiler system too, where you're, you know, radiator in the plenum of the furnace and some of that type of stuff. So we shut a valve and open two valves so that the water is forced to run through the plate cooler during the milking time only. Then we can run it back regular so that no water is going through here when it's not in use. I mean, these can be a really expensive thing to set up, but I think over the long haul of 15, 20, 30 years of farming, it's definitely. And I've heard of cases where, like, for instance, the compressor went bad, and what we need to do then is slow down milking. So let's say if I only milk to 3 units, I mean, it will cool it, and you'll get it down there as far as you can so you don't have, you know, so if you already had some cold milk in the tank, I could probably get away with one milking without it getting above 50 if I use this. Like in the summer, I got like I'll put a short piece of hose on this guy, which this is our main line that goes into our barn. But I'll run that even full throttle like on a really, really hot day, and that'll help cool.
Yeah, or we're filling more tanks out back, so you got more water flow, more.
Everything gets opened up. So it's cheaper to run that water than it is to have that compressor running like for 2 hours or whatever it might take. So usually in the cooler months, well, like now it's not much above freezing. It cools pretty quick. You just need good ventilation for that. Air's got to flow through your compressor is all. And you know, that's your end product. That's our profit end of things. So it's, now that we got the milk, to preserve the milk. So the truck will come every other day. He will take a sample, and they'll check bacteria usually once a month. And if it's high or kind of in borderline, they'll check it more often or randomly. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what the state's got some type of program in place to try to keep us on our toes. It's something we got to watch. So a big thing is I've heard of guys, you know, they milk and then they forget to turn the cooler on, and it becomes almost like a routine for us. And I've always made it a routine from the day I came here to check for leaks. Is the cooler on? Check your temperature. Sometimes I don't remember checking it, but I did check it, so that it's always, and once you leave here in the evening and then milk's warm in the morning, it's spoiled. You can't sell it, so that could be a mess. I think what happens is you hear the stories, especially growing up, where maybe they left the valve open, you know, after the milkman or something, and they forgot to shut that and it all goes down the drain. It happens. and then it sinks in real deep. And I think the most I've ever had happen is maybe I just forgot to shut a drain valve, but maybe by the second or third set I check it. So you don't lose too much sleep over that. But to lose a whole tank of milk, it'll chew on you for a while.
That's storage and keeping your commodities safe is very important to any type of farm, dairy or grain or whatever. It's a big part of it. So.
Seems like you got all that work put into getting it, and then it's a matter of preserving it.
That's a nice little video for you guys. It was a bit more educational based. It was nice to have Dad to cover more of the details on that end, but essentially this is how we cool our milk on the farm here. This is how we keep the product good for you guys, the end user. So.
And I think the bigger farms, I mean, where you're milking hundreds or thousands of cows, they may have, it may not be a lot different. There's different types of setups, but again, that's always a huge part of the expense of dairying, is getting the milk cooled quick. And when the more milk you got, the more expensive it's going to be, of course. This little setup here is not going to cut it when you got more than 50, 60 cows.
We're going to end off this video here. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for sticking to the end. It was a lot of fun to bring you guys along with us. So remember, subscribe, share, like, comment, and we will see you all next time.